Then I'd like to call the meeting to order tonight. It's Tuesday, July 20th at 5:02 p.m. I think we need to do attendance, right?
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Humison,
Here.
Stefan Zaporowski,
Here.
Shannon Berry,
She will not be joining us tonight.
Stacy Burgess, Chris Carey, Ray Diaz,
Here.
Ralph Figge, Brian Perrette,
Here.
Shelley Hazlitt,
Here.
Bridget Matthews Kane,
Here.
Bill Parks, Brian Sullivan, Cindy Sullivan,
Here.
Tammy Tech,
Here.
Chris Tolfa, and Lisa Benoit.
Here. And then we do have Dan Pilata and Bert Gardner from Dan Pilata from P3 and Bert Gardner from Kilo and Beanick is also in attendance.
Dan, that's a very spacious office you have there. Is it four-wheel drive?
I'm trying to log in on my computer. I can't do it. So my problem is I go through 20 minutes of dead space. So if I don't stop and do a meeting, I can't get on for 20 minutes. It's hard to explain where I live. I live in the woods. So
I live in Westfield, and that happens to me all the time.
you get it. So it's more important to be here on time.
Glad you're here. Public participation. It's hard for me to tell. I'm looking at the screen, and I can't tell who's here or not. Is anyone here who would like to speak to the group? If so, we need to have your name and your address. Go ahead and speak up. Anyone for public participation?
I was gonna say I don't see anybody on there that is not told us they're here.
Okay, well then seeing none, let's move on to item number 3. Any correspondence?
Stefan, have you had any superintendent? Have you had any correspondence through email?
There are none. I just looked again. There are none.
Okay, very good. Then item number 4 is approval of the June 29th school committee meeting minutes. I wasn't at that meeting, so I can't vote on that one, but do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
Make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from June 29th, 2021.
Second.
Motion's been seconded. Any corrections or changes to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Humison, abstain.
Abstain?
Stefan Zaporowski,
Yes.
Ray Diaz,
Yes.
Shelley Hazlitt,
Sorry, yes.
Brian Perrette,
Yes.
Bridget Matthews Kane,
Yes.
Cindy Sullivan,
Yes.
Tammy Tech,
Yes.
and Lisa Benoit.
Yes.
All right, very good.
Let it be known that Bill Parks has joined. It is 5:06.
Thank you.
Hello, Bill, welcome.
How we doing?
Good.
Good.
All right, item 5, OPM report. Live from the road.
live from the road. Actually, we had quite a productive month. As you will see, we have been working on the volume of the building and this taking all the comments that you made at the last meeting. Hopefully, you like what the architect has come up with. I think you will, or at least like where we're going. The materials and the colors and things like that can, as we've indicated before, can change. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we have everything covered for the estimates. And speaking of estimates, we did receive the package to send to the estimators yesterday. So 2 independent estimates will be worked on over the next month, which is the last piece of the schematic design puzzle. So as we're working through the little details of the building, the obviously the financials are a great concern to the city, the mayor, the council. So we will be working on those. Both estimators will come up with independent estimators, one via P3 and one via Kalo and Beanick, and we'll actually have a reconciliation of the two and present the reconciliation estimate to the committee. So that's where we are. We're still on schedule. We did have one interaction. Well, we've had a few interactions, but we had one important interaction with the MSBA related to our DESI submission. Our DESI submission, which is a requirement that DESI review the location of all of the special education facilities in a school. They are primarily trying to ensure that they're not all grouped together and that it's an inclusive environment. Our DESI submission's ready to go. MSBA asked us to hang on to it and submit it with the schematic design, as DESI's review time is going to be less than a week. So although we were prepared to do it, we're following MSBA's lead, and we're in pretty good shape. And that's it for the OPM report.
Thanks, Dan. Anybody have any questions? Okay. And seeing none, let's move on to item number 6. Bert, is that you, our architectural update?
I think it is.
How you doing, Bert?
So let me see, I'll share my screen. Or if I can get permission to share, I'll share my screen.
Peter, are you able to give Bert permission to share?
Not yet.
Let me send Pete a quick text.
In the meantime, Bert, do you want to introduce the other person you've got here tonight?
Yeah, sure. I've got Brian Zamolka. He's our traffic engineer from Niche Engineering. And so we did, that's one thing, that's another thing that we did since our last building committee is we've had the traffic analysis kind of performed for the existing school. And so Brian's here to kind of go over those results, answer any questions that we have on them. One thing I'll say is that the analysis for the schematic design package is just that. It's an analysis of what you have out there right now and what we project the impact will be from the new school at that site. So there's no real in-depth design solutions at this point. A reason for that is that if we find there's no impact, there's no need for you to have paid for design solutions up front. So it's kind of dependent on whether there's a need or not, whether we engage them to do further services on potential solutions. So let's see. I'm not sharing yet, but I can tell you, and then Brian, you can jump in at any time, but I can tell you for the traffic, and I'll jump to that slide. It's towards the end, but I'm going to jump up to that one first. I can tell you that it basically found that there's no real significant impact on Franklin Street because of the turn lane and different things. And what they did is they based it on the peak hours, which are the parent drop off and pickup times. But there are things that we want to look at, certainly, because of it's a big road for kids to cross and things like that. So there's some safety measures that we would recommend at minimum be pursued. So one is like a flashing beacon at the crosswalk, and another was curb extensions to kind of narrow the traffic lane a little bit and make the crosswalk more visible to people. So I don't know if that was a good summary, Brian, or if you want to explain it better than me.
Yeah, I mean, I could dive in a little bit. What we did is we kind of did a preliminary assessment, and that really kind of involved collecting traffic data on Franklin Street. It was 6-day, 24-hour counts. And what that did was allow us to use our traffic engineering standards through the manual of traffic, uniform traffic control devices, which basically sets standards for a signal warrant. So we did our signal warrant analysis for the peak hours, and as Bert said, there are not going to be any adverse effects which would warrant a signal. However, we did have recommendations to enhance student safety. So that basically what we're recommending. I'm not sure if anybody was able to read the assessment, but what we basically think would be beneficial would be some rapid flashing beacons. It's typical for a school. It's really just kind of pedestrian actuated signalization, but it's not a huge traffic signal. It's just kind of, Bert, I'm not sure if you could be able to pull up the slide. I don't think it's really that necessary.
Not
but
yet.
It's not that necessary,
Okay.
but
I sent
it's
you the
just-
message.
it's your typical pedestrian crosswalk signage, but it's highly visible, flashing lights when it's activated by students. So we think, given the speed, given the capacity, accommodations on Franklin Street, we don't think that exclusive pedestrian phases or even a traffic signal at that would be warranted. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Aside from that, we haven't really done a deep dive yet, but that will be determined at a later date to see based on, how the design advances.
I can't pull that up now, actually. So give me a second.
Can I ask a question related to that?
Sure.
So is this like, so we're going to have, I assume, well, there may be some already there because of the school, the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit signs. I guess there's probably some on Franklin already. And so this is just a flashing light in addition to add a crosswalk. Is that the proposed safety solution?
That is correct. We are planning on, the schematic design as it is right now intends to, locate a crosswalk closer to the entrance for students. We did find there are excessive speeds, so that is not included in the signal warrant analysis. However, based on the planning board recommendations, based on a further analysis, we may, propose some kind of other traffic calming measure to reduce the speeds right at the school. Undetermined now. Maybe we'll get into that as the analysis advances and as we proceed. But we are definitely looking at alternative measures, and we will be looking at alternative measures to enhance safety, definitely for the students around this area.
So just to follow on to that, so there's still a possibility that we could want just like a traffic signal there just for the crosswalk itself, like just, a regular traffic signal, but would only be activated when there's students actually crossing.
So
So that's a state highway. I think would need DOT permission if I'm not mistaken.
Gotcha.
Yes, it does need DOT permission, and also we want to get the town's input on it as well. But there are means and methods to have something more visible. The rapid flashing beacons are activated only with pedestrians. If it's determined to be necessary, there can be much more highly visible traffic signals, which is a mast arm post with a mast arm that has more of a flashing light, flashing yellow and red when it's activated. But the yellow would be consistent to kind of slow people down as they cross the school.
Okay.
So there are different means and methods. Sometimes more highly visible, but depending on the school, the location, the rapid flashing beacons tends to be the solution, that the preferred solution.
So Brian,
I have a comment too.
Sure.
I'll wait for the committee and then I'll ask my question.
Sure.
Well, I'm just
Can I
still
ask,
worried.
will there be a crossing guard there also whenever there's going to be kids crossing?
Yes, there is now.
Okay,
That's what we have now.
yeah. So so you have double, you have both.
Yep.
Okay.
And just to make a comment that I noticed the study was done on June 8th. That's also when the college is not in session and the seniors at WTA were not in school.
Yeah, so I mean, this is kind of a last minute analysis or assessment because we just wanted to kind of determine what maybe the overall high level impacts would be. We understand that, the school was kind of weaning down in its session. This is kind of, we're just coming out of the pandemic and this is still before the state of emergency was lifted. So we understand that there's a lot of factors here. But when we do the actual, the full traffic impact study, if it's warranted, we'll be taking new counts. We'll be doing it during school time. We'll be doing it when it's more of a regular traffic patterns. Definitely, around this area.
Session, because that's huge. That's a lot
No,
of
it's
time.
huge. It's definitely
remember,
huge.
remember too that this is schematic design, and as we do design development, we will be revisiting a lot of these issues. We have to get a permit from the planning board on site plan approval, and the planning board is going to be looking at left turn, right turn, and traffic patterns also. So the issue isn't closed. The good news is it isn't horrific. I think there's a positive here, and the positive here is it's not a horrific situation. There's probably something we're going to have to do, sure, but we're going to need a DOT permit for the driveway anyway. So it's not like we're not going to be going to DOT. It's going to be a question of how far we want to go.
Yeah. And that'll come, more answers will come with our further analysis.
Yeah,
I will add too that the assessment that we have now, even though we're kind of in a slow period and we're coming out of COVID, and it did look back to historical data and seasonal data and the applied factors to that. Of course, it's not perfect, but it was a tool that they used to kind of more closely approximate what the expected conditions would be. So,
That's
and I will, Brian asked if people have had a chance. I just received, I wanted to kind of look through it myself, understand it, and then kind of present it to you guys tonight. But I'll include that as an attachment when I send in the slides from this evening so that people will have an opportunity to look at the whole study if they'd like.
I mean, the good news is it's already a school zone, so people are relatively used to that area. And this is just bringing the school forward closer to the road. So it's, if anything, it'll be that much more noticeable as a school zone and people will pay more attention to it.
Well, and Mayor, I'll add, I feel like there's a healthy Westfield Police Department presence on that road too.
There really is.
There really is.
Having been stopped several times.
Is there any thought of putting a light up there?
Is there any
Just to operate during the school hours?
Can you explain how the traffic warrant works, Brian? I think that I don't know. I don't think it's impossible to put one on if you don't meet the conditions, but it's more of a process to get one approved. Is that correct? Or?
I mean, whether it's warranted or not, it's still a process that has to go through DOT. It's hard to say right now the extent of the process, but it's going to require definitely a further analysis. We'd have to do design drawings that would go typically through 3 levels of design. Mass DOT tends to take a little while, so it would be a longer process. That's why, I usually like to say if there's any, we did our signal warrant analysis now, but if there's still a desire by the town and DOT to have a signal there, we'd like to get on it sooner rather than later because, like anything, it could be a longer process. And obviously you want that installed before the school opens up if it's necessary.
Yeah. I don't know. That's something I've been thinking about since this whole thing started when it got moved closer to the street. So that's why I'm asking. I think it's something that really needs to be looked at.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other thing is that we're gonna have more students there from different, from a larger area. That's the other reason. We just have to be more mindful of the population that's going to be going to the school.
Correct. We did notice that there was not a lot of students crossing Franklin Street, though, which was surprising. So I think we only noticed like a maximum of 6 during the whole arrival dismissal period. So we thought there would be more walkers, and given the catchment area is expanding to further away, we don't expect a significant increase in pedestrians, but that will be quantified when we do our further counts.
The other thing I thought about was too, is the amount of cars that are going to be coming and going on that too, in and out. So I think that's another piece where, you know, people are picking their kids up and dropping their kids off, and cars coming and going in that turnaround, you know, whether they're going, you know, so there's going to be a lot more traffic coming and going to and leaving the school. I think that's another concern to look at.
Yep, and we estimated it's going to be twice as much, about 300 vehicles in the morning and about 175 in the evening.
Okay.
And I hate to be a dead horse, but the college really impacts the traffic on that street when it's in session.
And that's great information to know, because we'll try to schedule the counts when we'll coordinate with the college and make sure that all classes are in session and everything's operating normally at that time.
And
I think
Brian,
every Westfield's always happy when the college leaves for traffic purposes on Western Ave and Franklin Street.
Okay,
Brian,
thank you.
you'll be talking with our city engineer too, correct?
Correct. We'll be
Okay.
talking with all stakeholders.
Okay. Because I think Mark and his teams probably have some insight into this road. Specifically, they were the ones that actually had the redesign done with the center turning lanes. So
Okay. Yeah, it looks with the center turn lane, it looks great right now. We'll see when we do the analysis, how it actually operates.
All right, any other traffic questions?
Well, I'm glad for the input, to be honest with you. We can check this off as work in progress and certainly not resolved.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so Brian, you're welcome to stay if you like to, but I'm not going to keep you here if you have other things to do this evening. So,
Well,
questions that I probably couldn't. So,
yeah, I mean, you know, I do have to step off, but if there are any other questions, feel free to email me or email Bert, and he'll send them to me and get them answered for you.
thank you very much.
All right, thank you,
Bye.
everybody.
Thanks.
Take
Thank you.
care. Bye.
okay. So we can get to the school update now. First, the site plan. There's been some development since you guys last saw the site plan, I think. We've gone from 4 curb cuts onto Franklin Street to 3, kind of based on feedback from the city. And just the proximity of the bus drop-off lane and the parent drop-off lane, and then you've got the parking lot. So we did kind of simplify that a little bit. Sorry about that glitch. We've also this also allows we've reversed the flow. So parent drop-offs come in through the parking lot, and then they leave on a shared exit with the buses. And that allows for stacking of 34 cars at any given time. As you heard, Brian, I think that this is something that we want to talk about as we develop the project more. If he's talking about possibly 300 cars showing up in the morning, we'll want to think about how we're going to deal with that. So, but at least this has kind of doubled what we had previously with just the cars coming in directly off Franklin Street and dropping the students off. So. We've added some low walls around the outdoor areas that are adjacent to our cafeteria and the STE classroom. We've created an outbuilding location or a maintenance outbuilding as an add alternate to the project. That's also a turnaround lane for the truck, so they'll pull in, they'll back up to a loading dock, which you'll see in the plan, we've kind of pushed a loading dock and receiving area out the north end of the building. The grade works well for this so that we don't have to really construct a truck ramp down with drainage and everything. because the grade at the back of the building or the north side of the building is about 3 to 4 feet lower than it is when you enter at Franklin Street off the bus loop. So the other major thing that we did is we've taken the access to the multi-use path up on the dike that's planned and moved that to Franklin Avenue rather than coming in at the amphitheater where we'd previously shown it. And that just keeps that connection and that access point completely outside of the school grounds, but still readily accessible to the staff if they want to take their kids up onto the path and into wetlands or to the park down the road. Then the last thing we did is we've kind of created some landscape buffers between the sidewalks that face public areas and the classroom windows, just as an area that, you know, people aren't supposed to be there. So if somebody sees someone up near a window, it's more obvious than if it was all a paved plaza right up to the windows. So it's just a little security thing that we added. So that's the development of the site plan.
Hey, Bert, can I interrupt for a second?
Yep.
I had a conversation with Chief Valier, our police chief. I understand that he met with you guys too about sort of the situation in the back with the rec fields and parking around the fields. And I just want to make sure that he had conveyed his concerns about what he thought might happen with people parking back there.
Yeah, so we do have, it's not really reflected here, but between the purple line and the property line here, we're going to incorporate some parallel parking spaces.
Okay.
To get them off the street. That's kind of based on that conversation. The whole moving of this path access is also part of that conversation. His suggestion to do that. So yeah, we're trying to, accommodate as much of this feedback as we can as we meet with various stakeholders in the city. And the police department, fire department, obviously are primary contacts and a great resource for us as we're kind of planning the overall layout of the site and the building.
Good. As long as you communicate, that's good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. As far as the floor plan goes, this is the second floor. I'm going to show you the first floor first. Like I said, the really only significant change that's occurred since that we showed you the plans last is that the kitchen has been enlarged, and that's pushed some of our service spaces program outside the building. But in a way, it's fortuitous because, like I said, it really helps for trucks backing up and having a proper loading dock. We're still within our grossing factor when we do this. But this is something that was not, the larger kitchen exceeds MSBA's guidelines, and that was not reflected in the PSR where they were approving and disapproving things. We're still going to make a case that it's needed for the school and should be reimbursed. And the reason is that this is a CEP school, and a CEP school is a community eligible participation. So I think that all kids that go to this school are eligible for the free lunch program, and they've got an 80 to 90% participation rate at both Abner and Franklin. MSBA's guidelines don't factor that kind of high percentage rate for lunch participation when they size a kitchen. And we want the school to function for you. We don't want you to open up the school with a kitchen that's going to be too small. So we added about 620 square feet to the kitchen and squared it off, and that would give you the space that you need to kind of support that kind of volume of meals at breakfast and lunch. That's the major change. Like I said, that's going to be written up and it'll be specifically addressed when we do submit the schematic design binder in our narratives, and similar to how we made the case for a lot of the other Westfield specific needs, we'll make a case for this space as well and why that needs to be larger. This information kind of came out of our schematic design workshops after the PSR submission was put in. And that's why it wasn't included previously. At the second floor, again, pretty much what you've seen previously. The only change happens over that kitchen area. And what we've done is we've kind of pushed and pulled walls to make sure that we're aligning with walls on the first floor, just to kind of make the structural system from the first floor to the second floor more regular. Improve constructability of the building. It also gave us a couple open pathways between the first floor and the roof, which we'll need for our boiler flues and for the exhaust out of the kitchen cooking battery. So, and the rest of the floors remain the same. I included a roof plan this time, and we haven't really shown a roof plan, but this is just to show any of the shaded areas or the blue shaded areas are membrane flat roofs, basically. The darkest one is the highest roof, and then we basically got, you know, another few tiers after that. We've got a somewhat high roof above the STE classrooms and the media center. We've got kind of a story and a half over the cafeteria space and the music classroom. And then at the first floor, we've got some flat roofs in front of the classrooms, the second floor classrooms, and then the lowest roof here is the canopy. But basically, just to kind of show you that we're trying to simplify and have some organization and sense to where the roof lines fall. And then the gray shade is just your pitched roofs that we've incorporated into the building. So with that, we'll take a look at some of our pictures of what we think the building might develop into. And please excuse kind of the colors, trying to get them to be reflective of what we were really thinking wasn't as easy as we had anticipated using our Revit software. But hopefully you get the idea.
Yeah.
This first one, option A, and I just gave them options so that we can talk about them easily if you want to jump back and forth. But option A, one thing we've done is we've changed the kind of shed roof profiles that we had to mansard so that they finish off a little bit nicer when they return back from the face of the, you know, the street face. This is the ashlar bond. This is the only one that we kind of carried the ashlar stone in because based on some feedback since our last meeting, there's only one church building in town that kind of carries that motif in Westfield, and predominantly your masonry buildings are more brick, and at that more of a red and a beige scheme of brick. So that's where we kind of are leaning to with our development really, but we just included this one still as a reference point from the last presentation.
It looks expensive.
Right.
Everything is expensive.
Right. That's the reality, unfortunately. So speaking of costs, though, we had talked about metal standing seam roofs the last time. There was some concern about snow sliding and you know, the differences between the two. Metal standing seam is a little bit more money than an asphalt shingle. So in our base bid, we're planning to carry an asphalt shingle, which is what's reflected in kind of the straight on elevation here. Standing seam would be more of this blow up here. And the blow up in all of these is basically this portion of the front elevation so that you can kind of reference yourself to what you're looking at. We're still planning to keep the brick, some kind of a different masonry for the base of the building, some precast accents at window heads, window sills, and in an accent band. We had talked last time about potentially having the upper roof be the flat roof and the lower roof be the pitched roof. And as we were developing that option, we decided that it made more sense to change that around, put the pitched roof at the top and the flat roof down below. One, it helps with the concern of snow sliding onto the sidewalks. And two, by the time we flashed the roof properly below windowsills, the eaves were getting down pretty low. And I think of Franklin Avenue School now with all the chain link fence over the low canopies to keep kids from crawling up or accessing, you know, the roof portions of the building. And we didn't want to kind of duplicate that condition. We did look at raising the second floor a couple feet, but the proportions didn't appeal to us, and it's just added cost too. So we went this route instead, and just had the first floor roof be the flat roof, and then step back with a pitched roof at the top. The next scheme, again, the colors aren't particularly exactly where we want, but you can kind of see in the enlarged one here, we've got kind of the beige or the cream colored accents with the red brick, which I think is more typical of what you find in Westfield. And again, just the overall elevation shows that we plan on bringing that base material all the way up at the library and around the entrance. We're still planning on using the cement fiber wood accent type look panels for different accent areas around the building, such as the entry, the recessed classrooms, and the stair towers. But in this scheme, again, we're looking at, you know, a beige kind of cut stone look. So this would be a similar product to what the ashlar was, a synthetic stone, but it would be just in this cream color and a larger, more formal stone, and then a brick field above and the precast accents. Then in option C, we kind of mixed it up. The brown or tan brick should be more of a beige family or a cream family, and probably a couple subtle color variations of that, so that it's not a flat beige wall. And we put the red brick at the base in this option. So that's really the primary difference. The other thing that we did on this is we changed the roof color with the shingles or with the standing seam. We'll have multiple options available for us to kind of play with his colors. And then darker brick accents instead of the precast as the window headers in this one. So we tried to throw a lot of different options out. I think that people were comfortable with the kind of proportions of materials that we presented, with the base material coming all the way up to the full height of the library, and then on the opposite side of the addition with a lower base around the building and then the field above. So that's what all these reflect. If people want to revisit that, we can certainly do so. But really, this is just to continue the conversation with what people think. So open to any questions at this point or comments.
Before you go, I just wanted to say that all of those options are the same building and the same materials. They're just different colors and different variations of masonry. And it's really important that we get the material right for the schematic design estimate. So we know, based on everybody's commentary, you're looking sort of for a masonry facade building. The colors, again, will be developed as we do design development after the first of the year. So, don't get hung up on the colors, but please comment on it.
Right. On the materials and the proportions, if people have a preference for certain materials at the base over other materials, we'd like to hear that for sure. And then the proportions, if you think the base needs to be lower, higher, or you want to revisit whether it's full height at the entrance and in the library, those are the kind of comments or feedback that we're hoping for. Or even like you can comment on the size and kind of ratio of the windows to the walls. That's good feedback too. And if you think that that's a look you're looking for, if you want us to keep working on the fenestration. So
I'd like to say that lighter color looks more like an elementary school to me than the darker red. It's my own personal opinion. The other two seem more of like a middle school and above type of building.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I don't have any reasoning why, but I like the lighter color.
So
Bill, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was looking at the lighter colors thinking it reminded me of the DYS youth detention facility up on East Mountain Road. And I like the darker brick more, but again, it's no particular reason. It's just a feeling. That's all.
Yeah.
I want it to look like a youth detention facility.
And Don, I was with you. I really liked the way that first the 1A looked. It just I don't know. I really liked the look of that one.
Yeah,
I don't know why. I don't know why, but I did.
That was my first knee-jerk reaction, but I really liked that brick look. To me, that speaks of New England schools. Again, that's what Westfield State College looked like when I was there. So maybe Bill's right. It does look more like a college or a university than an elementary school, but I just think it's a very handsome, all three of them are, but I like A the most personally.
So can you go to B, Bert?
Yep. How's that?
And now to C?
Now to C?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So I'm with Bill. I like C. But I'll tell you, because it's a lighter school. And I'll tell you why, though, because the Tech Academy up the road is the top color of this building, the upper campus. And the red is the same as all of our other elementary schools. So like you all, it's just a feeling. It's the first thing that came to my mind. The upper part of this building looks like the upper campus at Westfield, or the old Westfield High School. That's all I thought. No rhyme or reason.
So did you guys like the look of the stone from option A? Because that's one thing that Bert's really kind of trying to narrow down to, is the materials we're using. So this option is a totally different material for the media center. and obviously the color right now is a little off, but this is a material that Bert's looking at. So if you guys are not interested in this material at all, then at least he can wipe that off his list as far as estimates go.
Tammy, I like that material. I'd like that for the whole building. That's because I'm sitting in one right now that looks like that.
Well, and I liked the look of this stone. I'm not a huge fan of the color.
Yeah.
Architecturally, it looks really kind of really neat when you see it. And I do want to say, Bert, thank you for doing these slides. It's becoming alive, versus just the rectangles. So thank you for trying to put material and all of that type of stuff together. I will say the composite we're thinking of doing, I liked the darker composite versus like this one. This one blends too much. I really liked when you had that contrast, when it looked like, possibly wood. I know it's, what is it? Cement board.
Yeah. So, and I think, as far as the ashlar stone, and the fiber cement panels, if people like those, they come in different sizes and they come in different colors. So once we know whether or not we're pursuing a material, we can start diving into the colors a little bit more, like Dan said. So
I like them.
Listen, I like all three. I think they're all beautiful. I think that building is really attractive now. And as Tammy said, it's starting to come to life. I think whatever we do is going to grow on us so that we're all going to come to really admire it.
I agree, 100%.
So I defer.
That is absolutely true.
Yep. I'll defer to anybody else.
Stefan,
Do you
like the Tech Academy?
Say that again?
Which one did you say was like the Tech Academy? Because I'm at the Tech Academy.
Option C. If you look at the top color,
Really? Okay.
Upper campus is that color.
Okay, because I'm missing that. I guess maybe I see color different. I
Well,
see
it's
it
a
as
lighter
dark.
brick. It's a lighter brick up top. Dan, am I crazy? You spent a lot of time up there.
Because
I
I'm
think
standing.
the mortar's light. I think the mortar's lighter. I think the brick is still brick.
Upper campus.
Yes. Stefan, you're a guy, so
I think it's
we have
right. It's not that light.
I have
I'm
no
literally
say.
looking at it right now.
The inside.
The
of the
inside
upper
is definitely that color.
campus. Okay.
It's also glazed.
The front of the building is more of that color. The
I guess
entrance.
seeing
What was
color.
the old entrance?
Okay, got it.
Bridget has her hand up.
Yeah, I like them all. I think they're all attractive. I just like B and C better because I think they look more like Westfield, and people, when they were referring to why they like them, they say it fits in. And I just
like B.
would fit in better. B or C would fit in better in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
My argument. So, but the colors do seem like B, like that beige looks a little greeny right now. Like it might help to see a different version of it. But I prefer B and C myself, even though I like A.
So the brick, the more of the mason brick style versus the ashlar stone.
One of the things that you guys all brought up at the last couple of meetings was you wanted to make sure that the entrance was defined. Do you think that Bert achieved that goal with the material change?
Yes. I think so.
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think once he continued with the material for the media center and made that stand out, the entrance I thought stood out more. And
I have to give Bert a compliment now.
No, I will.
I don't know. I thought it was a good question, Dan.
We struggled with the whole idea of a pitched roof versus a flat roof and the pros and cons of it. And I will say what Bert and his teams have done is they've taken the best, what I feel is the best of both worlds. We still get the majority of a flat roof, but we get the look. To me, this looks a little more residential with the pitched roofs and what I call the little gables. So I think he did a really good job of trying to look at that. And I think once we start picking colors and all that, that's going to even tie it even more. But if the will is more of a brick look, then that at least gives, Bert, his estimators. So the cement board, which is that wood-like stuff that you see, and then everything else is more of a mason. So right there where he's pointing is the cement block board.
Mm-hmm. And so in this one, we're thinking it's still a calcium silicate stone or cast stone product. And these would be larger. These could be up to 2 feet wide. So that's a really larger kind of cut stone look. We could have like the same thing if that was brick, and we could go with larger brick pieces too. Brick is probably, you can't get as big as you can with the stone, but you can, there's benefits to it. If this was all brick here, and we could use a large brick, as I mentioned, it's clay and then clay above too. So you don't have differential thermal movement in the two products on the wall. And this calcium silicate stone also is subject to staining. So especially if we go with a light color, if we went with a darker color at the base, it wouldn't be as much of an issue, but with the light colors, it is subject to staining. So I guess that would be the next question is, is there a preference? This is definitely more of a kind of classical, more formal look you're going to get if we go with this kind of cut stone. You think of like classical libraries and things like that, or civic buildings really. That's the look that we'll get from that. Whereas the brick is going to look like brick, but we can do different colors and we can do different sizes, up to 8 by 16. So.
My only concern is that the water table, the water table has to be polished so that it can be, graffiti can be removed.
Mm-hmm.
Like a ground stone.
Right.
What's a water table?
Yeah, I was going to ask that same question, Bridget.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't
the
understand.
little band at the bottom there is a water table. I call those water tables.
Don't you be using your fancy vocabulary with us there, Mr. Pilata.
Mr. Parks may say,
Darker
might
then?
call it something else.
So should
I
the
think
water,
Cindy had a good question.
like, see?
What was that?
So should the water table then be the darker color, see? Wouldn't that cover the stains better than a lighter brick?
If we went with brick, we would probably put a graffiti coating on that.
Okay, gotcha.
Because you can't polish brick really. You can polish some of the other stuff, but you can't polish the brick so much.
Correct.
So, but we would put a coating on it. So, and the darker color, I think it just, most things that people graffiti with are darker colors. So the contrast, if someone went with a white can of spray paint on the darker base, it would be just as contrasting and obvious as if someone went with a can of blue spray paint on the lighter base, I guess. It's kind of a losing battle. Dan's right. We really want to kind of make sure that whatever we do, we've just built something into it to make it easy to clean up after it's done.
Yeah.
I don't want Brian hunting me down.
Hey, by the way, I think I think the entrance sticks out more. There you go.
Yep.
So you get an extra one there on the entrance.
Agree. I agree with Bill. I like C. C's my vote. My son is on the mound. I gotta mute myself.
So since some people are voting and some people aren't, I did for the, and I don't know if we want to get into this now, but we could. I did surveys for a lot of the schematic design workshops because, obviously I wasn't going to meet with every teacher in the district, but we could survey the teachers in the district for a first grade or a special needs room and ask them questions. I could put a quick survey together that could get issued within sometime this week to the committee members, and you could just say which option you like best.
As long as it includes pictures.
They cannot
Okay.
do that. You cannot do that, Bert.
I can't do that?
No,
Because
you
it's the
cannot
open
vote
meeting
outside
law?
the meeting. You
Okay.
cannot deliberate or vote outside the meeting.
Yep. Even if it's a poll and it's not an official thing, huh?
Correct.
You can't
Okay.
do it.
That's
You
still
cannot
deliberate.
do it.
Okay.
So can we vote? Are you looking for a vote? Is that
I don't think it's necessary for us to
I
vote.
don't think it is either.
I think we know that everybody is accepting of the masonry products and the cement board products around the stairwells. That's enough that I need for estimating.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Bert, do you agree?
I do agree, and I can tell you that what we put in the schema, because we did send our documents out already to the estimators, and what we carried was the stone. And the reason we carried the stone was because it's a little bit more expensive than the brick. And if it comes back, this cut stone product, basically, if it comes back that we need to value engineer, that gives us a cushion. That's why we did it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also think it's important for the committee to actually feel the materials. So we'll be in person by the time we need to make this decision, and you can physically hold the bricks, see the bricks,
Yep.
touch the faces of the bricks. It really does make a difference.
Mhm.
Perfect. I'm
Excellent.
fine with not voting on anything we don't have to vote on.
I agree with you, Dan.
Okay.
I recorded that, Brian.
So Bert, as far
I'm
as
sorry, I was
material,
breaking up.
Bert, as far as material, are you set on everything for the estimators? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. I think that there was no real objection to what we showed tonight as far as the materials go, and that's really what we were hoping for, or else we would have had to follow up with them. But I think that based on the feedback, we're good. Mhm.
Perfect.
Yeah, great
Now-
job. Great job on these. That's awesome.
It looks nice.
Can I ask a simple question? Are you happy with the direction that we're taking the project and that the team is going? Do you feel like we're going in the right direction?
Yes.
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 As opposed to what other direction could you be taking us in?
Well, you might all have not liked it, and you might have said, "Hey, put the brakes on," and this isn't going to work.
No, I don't think that's the case, Tom.
I think Bert has done a tremendous job of listening to comments, but sometimes, at 3 a.m. when he's drafting this stuff, it slips away.
Only because that's the schedule you're making them on, Dan.
Yeah.
Let the guy go to bed by 2. No, I think it looks very nice. Again, as you've heard us say, we almost don't, all three look nice. We like them all. We can certainly narrow them down as we go along, but I think the direction is exactly what we had hoped for a school. And as Councilor Matthews King says, it fits in very nicely with the neighborhood. That's important to the residents who live there, but it also looks fantastic. Any student who goes there, any teacher who works there would be proud to be at that school.
Absolutely.
I love
it's
the
not
roof
a
line.
school. It's not a school that's going to date either.
No, it looks good.
No. Yeah. I love
Because
the
it has
roof
to
line.
last for 120 years.
Yes.
No
That's
offense,
the
folks, but we'll all
superintendent's
be
view.
long gone by the time the school has to be replaced.
No, it looks very nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's the next step? What do we need?
I was gonna say, Bert,
So
do you have anything else?
I think
Or are
we're
you
good.
good?
I think that the next building committee meeting will be, actually, I don't know. Is it just before we submit, or are we doing 2 in August?
I think we're going to need to do 2, Bert. I think we need to talk to them about finances and have one meeting solely on finances.
When we get the
And-
estimates?
When we get the estimates,
Okay.
it's possible we could vote SD at that meeting, but if not, we'll need that second meeting. But there's no reason to meet for at least 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay. I think in 3 to 4 weeks, what I was going to say is we'll probably have some interior renderings of what some of the interior spaces are going to look like. Similar to tonight, we're pretty well familiar with what our materials are going to be inside. Walls are going to be sheetrock walls, metal frame, stud framed. And then the nuances, if you don't like materials, you don't like what we're showing, that all can get worked out in design development. It's not critical, but you should at least see some of the images that we're going to submit with our schematic design package. So we'll share
Absolutely.
some of those before we submit to MSBA in late August. So, and that's it. I think that we're in a pretty good position. Like I said, at this point, we got the stuff out to the cost estimators. We did a project manual, which is the, listing the quality of materials that we want, what the materials are going to be. And then we've got a set of drawings too. So we spend the next month while they're putting numbers to those, making sure that we're well coordinated between trades and the spec and the project manual language, and that then we're working on the narratives, basically. The binder piece of this submission is what we'll be working on over the next month. So I think we're good.
Do you have any sense that materials are coming down a little bit, or are they still wicked high?
It's varying by trades. Wood appears to be dipping a little. Steel is still a little higher than I'd like to see it, but we are still a ways away from bidding, and I wouldn't even concern yourself with it.
Okay.
I mean, we're going to carry a healthy escalation number and push the limit with MSBA because they don't want to see a project come in over either. But we're gonna make sure that this school is value engineered to the point where it is a cost efficient school while giving you what you want.
Okay.
And cost efficient doesn't mean cheap.
Nope. This definitely doesn't look cheap. It looks very, very good.
Masonry, though, I'll give you guys credit. Masonry has kind of become the most economical, durable kind of envelope for a building. The rain screens where we're showing the fiber cement, that's much more costly, which is why we're limiting it to just accent locations.
Good.
So.
Thank you.
We know what we're doing here in Westfield. Absolutely. Anything else under this architectural update? If not, we can move on to item number 7.
I think you can move on. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm unshare my screen here. There you go. There you go.
Very good. So item 7 is simply any other items not reasonably anticipated 48 hours prior to this meeting. Is there anything that we have to talk about? All right. Do we need to set a date for the next meeting, or will we wait in here?
I think since we have, I was going to say, since we have 2 independent estimators and we don't have the reconciliation meeting because they're both independent, I think it's hard to give that date.
Okay. All right, then we'll expect to hear back in a couple of weeks.
Right.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Humison,
Yes.
Stefan Zaporowski,
Yes.
Ray Diaz,
Yes.
Ryan Perret,
Yes.
Shelley Hazlitt.
She left at
Hop
5:56.
off. Yep.
Thank you. Bridget Matthews Kane,
Yes.
Phil Park,
Yes.
Cindy Sullivan,
Yes.
Tammy Test,
Yes.
and Lisa Benoit.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Everyone.
Thank
Great
you.
job, everyone.
Bye.